Hey everyone, so it's a new Marvel movie, you know what time it is, it's time for me to share my opinions. Let's dive right in. Doctor Strange Into the Multiverse of Madness, directed by Sam Raimi. Is it any good? Yes, of course it is, it's really good. The first thing that caught me completely off guard, partially from the opening shot, but particularly from the first shot of Doctor Strange lying in bed, that's in the opening scene, it's not much of a spoiler, I knew that Sam Raimi brought his A game. He brought his camera movements that do not need to be as elaborate and as exaggerative as they are, but he went for them anyway. He put his whole Raimussy into this film and it fucking shows. There is a genuine visual language at play here. Of course, the frame is a playground, so you should play. And most filmmakers do not care or give a shit about that, or sometimes they're not enabled to by the Marvel system. And I was pretty skeptical about whether we were going to get actual Sam Raimi-isms in this movie. Were we actually going to get his vision of what this movie was going to be? Were we going to get a few sprinkles of it, or were we going to get full-fledged Raimi? I don't think we got full-fledged Raimi, because I think if it was full-fledged, we probably would have got genuine practical effects, even more exaggerative camera movements and stuff. I think this was capped at maybe like 70% Raimi, and I can't even believe that we got what we did. I cannot believe the amount of personality, the amount of love, the amount of explosive visual care and time and effort put into this film. It genuinely stands out in this constant slate of superhero films. And that's something that I can't say about really any in the past few years, apart from like the Suicide Squad, that they've actually stood out visually. Because this movie, oh boy, does it have some absolutely amazing visual personality kinks. To begin with, the use of colour. I think the biggest issue, that anyone can agree the biggest issue with No Way Home, for example, and with a lot of these Marvel films, is they look very static, very dry, very factory made, very processed. And no one likes that. And that's true. No Way Home does have those issues. I think everyone's seen the picture of Flash Thompson on that fucking street and the fucking cars CGI, and it's a nightmare. This movie, yeah, okay, there's a lot of CG, and it's less noticeable to an extent, but the thing that sets it apart, I think, is there's a real warmth to the frame, there's genuine colour, there's natural lighting sources. Things don't look as fake, and I mean in more of a subtle way, as in it's just constantly got colour in it. Something like Thor Ragnarok is more sort of vibrant with its colours, and it's more out there and flashy, whereas I think on a more subtle level, consistently the frame has just more colour in it, and that's a lovely thing to see. One thing that really surprised me, there's like indie movie level editing with shots overlapping to communicate what's going on in a character's head. There's a shot where there's a character that's sort of in two places at once without giving anything away, and you see how those two versions of themselves are communicating with each other, and the shot is mirrored between the two places. You'll know what I mean when you watch it. I'm going to be saying that quite a lot. You'll know what I mean when you watch it. You'll know what I mean. There's also just stuff of like montages almost with characters' faces surrounded by different objects, and like this part of the frame's got someone's face and this part of the frame's got someone's face, and there's something in the middle of it, and here's another shot that like overlaps over it, and they're all like on half visibility. It was just so fresh. I said earlier, this movie uses a lot of Sam Raimi's idiosyncrasies as a filmmaker, and the best way I can describe it, it's basically a superhero horror movie in the best way it could be. I love my horror movies. I'm a horror movie guy. I love, probably my favourite part of Spider-Man 2 is that scene where those arms have thrown everything around. I love The Evil Dead. I've got the Evil Dead poster in my room. What a cliche. I've literally got it right behind me. I love when Sam Raimi does horror. This movie, Sam Raimi does horror in a Marvel movie. If that's not ambition, I don't know what is. This movie, I'm pretty sure it was one more shit away from being a 15 or an R in America, because this really pushed the bar for PG-13. It is surprisingly violent and scary. There are jump scares, there is blood, and I mean there are some kills in this that are fucking brutal. The audience were gasping. I'm talking like John Wick level of, oh my god. I just don't know how they got away with it. I really do not know how they did that. You've got characters who are like, bodies are like contorting like they're in The Grudge. You've got characters walking down hallways with blood dripping down their face. Like, what is this? Did I walk into the wrong movie? Like, oh my god, just to see that back, to see Sam Raimi making the thing that he loves again, it was gorgeous. It was joyous to be in that theater watching that. There are genuine jump scares. There's like scenes of actual horrific suspense. There's stuff going on that has a horror edge to it in a superhero movie. I can't believe that that's the thing we've got. I just can't believe that in of itself. There's a scene very early on, and I think it deliberately tries to say, we're doing things differently this time. We're going into uncharted territory. It's in the opening fight scene. Again, I will not spoil the film. Oh no, it's not the opening fight scene. It's like the one that happens right after the opening fight scene. It's probably the best action sequence in the film, and it is capped off by a moment that tells you, yep, we're doing something different this time. This is not your run-of-the-mill Marvel film. I could gush for ages about the horror stuff, but there's other stuff to talk about as well, so I will put that to bed, but let it be noted, that is my main takeaway. That's the main thing I love about this, is the visuals and the overall tone and style of it. It's also one of the Marvel movies that doesn't have a hard time not taking itself too seriously. There are moments that are admittedly a bit goofy and a bit OTT, and that's okay, because the cheese is what you're there for. The horrific moments can be enthralling and scary, but it doesn't all have to be so serious. It can be tongue-in-cheek, it can just be fun, which is what it was. I didn't see any of the trailers, and by the way, this whole review, if you've seen the trailer, then everything that was in the trailer is what I'm going to be talking about. So if you haven't seen the trailer, don't watch this review. Apart from that though, it is spoiler-free. I will not give anything away. I didn't watch the trailers, so I didn't know that this, America character was going to be in the movie. I didn't know there was going to be this young girl sidekick. I thought she was fine. I liked her. She was good. I think, you know, it's really, really easy to butcher these characters and make them super unlikable, because honestly, the worst thing you can do is stick a superhero that you actually like with some dumb kid who's always butting in too much and doesn't really know what they're doing. But it wasn't like that at all. I think Sam Raimi knows, yeah, people aren't here to see the movie for this character, but we'll weave them into the narrative in a way where it's not all about them. Her dialogue was pretty good. She was sympathetic to a point. She wasn't overbearing. She didn't get in the way at all. Yeah, I really didn't mind her inclusion. She was fine. I was happy she was there because of the things that she offered for the plot. The presentation of the main villain, I'm not going to get into the details, I thought was great. I really, really did. And the fundamental part of it that was so great is their motivation as a character for why they're doing the things that they do. It's kind of, I use this word a lot, but it's kind of the crux of the film. It's kind of why everything's happening. And I think if that wasn't sound enough, the film really would have suffered for that. And they hit the nail on the head. Did a great job. I really understood that character, why they were doing the things that they did. It was organic for that character, that's the main thing. A lot of conflict in these Marvel movies. It feels really contrived. When Doctor Strange is casting that spell on No Way Home and Peter's talking like a fucking idiot and he messes it all up, it's really forced. And as much as I love that movie, that is something about it I've never liked and I never will. So all the decisions in this movie for such a crazy multiverse trotting plot, it all fits together really well. None of that felt forced. I just got behind all of it. It worked really well on a dramatic level. Doctor Strange in this movie. Doctor Strange, I think this movie very, very subtly, very subtly saved this version of Doctor Strange. The other films, they didn't butcher him by any means, but when he's a side character, he's good fun, but he can kind of only be, you know, a means to an end. Generally, he's there for a plot reason or for a bit of comic levity like he was in Ragnarok. In No Way Home, he is almost an antagonist of sorts. He gets in the way of what Peter is ultimately trying to do, and his role works in that film very well that way. But him being a main character, for me, it's never really worked. I don't particularly like the first Doctor Strange movie. I don't think that he's particularly interesting in that movie. This movie completely righted those wrongs. He's just so much more likable and empathetic as a character than he's been in any other thing that I've seen him in. There was always this sort of, not barbaric, but slightly dedicated, I want to say, edge to his character. he would do pretty nasty things if it meant getting the job done, but I think this version of Doctor Strange has a real heart, especially in his relationship with that girl sidekick that I was talking about. As I say, it's a subtle change and you see it in a few moments throughout the film, but I think Doctor Strange as a character has changed for this movie, and he's changed for the better. I like this version of the character more than any other one that we've got, and as I say, it's not a massive change, it's not a big thing, but he feels like more of a hero, and that's only a good thing. Add to that as well, in scenes in Infinity War, Endgame, lots of things, Doctor Strange, he's always kind of on the front lines of the battle. He is always busy, he's creating portals, he's doing this, he's doing that. He's always been very resourceful, and I think this film pushes that even further. He's got so much shit to manage and to think about and to go, right, how is this going to work? What have we got to get to go here? He's always on his feet, he's always thinking, he's always kept busy as the main character in this conflict. Gotta say though, the OG of this movie was Wong. He's funny in everything, but he was fucking hilarious in this. He had all the best lines of the movie. Speaking of which, there's quite a few less of those Marvel zingers that you get that really kind of grate on you and grind you down and you just go, oh, can you just stop with these? There's a few less of those in this, and there's a few more actual jokes, mainly from Wong, which I didn't particularly expect. Sam Raimi's a good writer, but he's not known for his comedy. He's kind of more known for the way that he puts comedy into his tone and into his overall style, but his actual jokes, they've been alright, but I know this wasn't written by him. It was still a funnier movie than I would have expected. Now here's a big thing. Here's a big thing. The whole, for me at least, selling point of this movie was the potential of all these different crossovers. Are we going to get Fantastic Four? We saw Professor X in the trailer. Are we going to get X-Men? Are we going to get fucking Howard the Duck? You know, there's so much potential, and I'm going to address the way that they used that whole thing in this movie. So if you consider that a spoiler, I'll put a time on screen to skip ahead to, for if you want to skip what I think about that. I won't say who's in it or anything, I'll just say how much of that sort of thing they did and how I felt about that. So they didn't do too much of it, which initially I was like, okay, you know, I mean, that's not the end of the world. But the more I think about it, the more I think that's good, because the film actually stands on its own 2 feet and says, we're just going to have an entertaining movie, we're going to have a fun time that sells itself on the entertainment value and on the really solid story beats. We're not going to use a gimmick to sell this movie, we're going to actually ground it with something tangible and with something with a bit of depth, and you can rewatch it and actually experience more or less the same thing again and not lose the hype. It was a really nice surprise. I mean, the fan service, there was fan service, don't get me wrong, there was some. I mean, you've seen the trailer, you know we're getting Professor X, like that was awesome to see in the movie. And we definitely got some fan service, but that wasn't the point of the film. The point of the film was to tell its own story, and as I've said before, it did that really well. I like the fact that as these Marvel movies have gone on, we've sort of gradually woven the multiverse aspect into the story. It felt like this was going to be the movie that made everything pop off. It was going to be absolutely mental. This is happening and this is happening. It is pretty mental, but I don't think this is as far as things can go. I'm not sure whether Marvel intend to push things any further, but I think there is still further that you could go with it. I think there is still a crazier movie than this one just waiting to be made. But here's the thing, in this movie, the way that the multiverse stuff ties so directly into the story meant I could actually care about the story and engage with it. As you know, I fucking love the Suicide Squad, but in that movie, I don't really care about what the characters want. The only part that I even care about is when there's the whole conflict about the files being leaked, about the, whatever it was, I can't even remember now, but that whole part I liked. The overall plot though, I don't really care about it, and I just see that as a means of getting to the action, getting to the comedy, all that stuff. There was more of a genuine thread that kind of tied everything together in this movie. There was more of a sense of cohesion, and that I actually cared. The fact that I actually cared about these characters and about this story meant the film has a lot more to offer me. I'm not just here for the filmmaking and everything. There's actually a story that I can invest in and care about as I watch it, which is genuinely quite rare. The only times I can even think of where I do care about these stories are like the big crossover event things, and this wasn't even really one of those. This is like a mini crossover with little bits here and there. You got Wanda in here, you got the whole X-Men aspect of it, but it told its own story, and I don't usually care about those, so kudos for getting me invested. The way that the story and the overall focus of the movie uses the whole multiverse concept was great. The idea of all these different things happening at the same time in different universes, but coinciding and having an effect on each other, things crossing over in the present moment between different universes. It's something that we haven't actually seen before, and the fact that that was pretty much the main narrative device of the film, it was great. It was a fresh idea. They took it to a place that was kind of manic and all over the place. Yeah, I'm all for that. And then just to rattle off a few quick things for a final note, this film does such a good job of making Wanda look like an absolute powerhouse. She's so powerful looking in this movie. I mean, wow. Just wow. This movie's just got a thing that happens. If you've seen the movie, you know the thing. Come on, you know the thing. And that thing was sick. That thing was so cool. I was totally there for that thing. In fact, here's the audio of my reaction for that thing. Holy shit! Holy shit! And lastly, there is a scene with music. That was fucking cool. Am I right? Like that was sick. That was tight. I loved that. That was probably my favorite thing in the movie. Like, Jesus Christ. And that's pretty much it for the good things I have to say. I have like a small handful of criticisms. To be honest, it's very consistent across the board. These are just a few things that I thought they're worth saying. I think the inclusion of Professor X could have been more in-depth. I feel like it could have amounted to more. It kind of felt like we just saw him and that was it, and that was why he was there, so that he could be there. If they have future plans for that character, great, but I don't think they do. I think this was a one-off, and I don't know, it felt kind of hollow. And coming out of the film, I realised that actually wasn't what the film was about, even though it was what it was sold on. I don't have a problem with that, by the way. I think it's absolutely fantastic when marketing can actually be subversive and can give you something that you're not expecting in the film. Yeah, I just thought you could have done more with that, but it didn't disappoint me. I just felt there was more that could be done, you know? Another one, this is a big one for me. The action in this film is pretty good. Actually, the action scene I spoke about earlier, the one following the very opening one, it was probably the best one in the movie. Really stood out to me, gave me a lot of like Spider-Man 2 vibes. There's this whole iconography of people hanging from buildings and bits of the building falling away, and like, I don't know, I think Raimi stepped up his game. He really played with the whole tension aspect that I feel other movies don't get very creative with in the Marvel universe, you know? There's not usually too much at stake, but he really loves to intensively structure a set piece where it's like, this is a thing that the character can stand to lose. This is something that is on the line in this scene. It's not just the general threat of them being beaten up, you know? It's the ring in Spider-Man 3 and that whole fight scene. It's Mary Jane about to fall from the building in Spider-Man 1. He loves to put things on the line. It works super well. And you get that in this movie. You get that. You get some of that nuanced action stuff. I just think this movie needed a standout action scene for it to be a really great superhero movie. And it didn't have that, and I think with that in there, it probably would have been. However, within the confines of CGI, I don't think there was going to be that scene in this movie. I'm pretty sure for me to get that standout action scene, it would have needed to be all practical, and that's just not realistic, is it? I mean, that's just realistically not going to happen, which is fine, and that's just part of the system, which I completely get, but yeah, would have been nice, but again, I didn't leave the theatre pissed off that we didn't get it. And the last thing, a small thing, you can only expect so much. I think the post-credits in this movie, they're fairly inconsequential. I actually think the way this movie ended, like the final shot of the actual film, could have been one of the post-credit scenes. I surely would have cared about those post-credit scenes a lot more if that had happened in a post-credit scene rather than the end of the film. But the ones that were there, they weren't the best. The second one, yeah, I liked that. The first one, I was like, okay, whatever, sure. But the second one, I was like, yeah, I like that. I was like, I like that, I'm happy about that. even though I'm sure it pissed a lot of people off. And that's pretty much all I have to say about the Multiverse of Madness. I would say it's probably like top 10 MCU movies. It's in the upper half. I know there's like probably nearly 30 of them now. I'd say, yeah, the upper third. It's consistently fun. It's got all that horror stuff working in its favor. It's a very unique, dare I say, a one-of-a-kind superhero movie. There's just been nothing like it before. If you do this sort of thing again, it will just be inevitably compared to this one. Overall, I really recommend this movie. I had a really great time watching it. It's consistently just a lot of fun. That's the main takeaway. Fun, fun, fun. It was really fun. I doubt there will be a better Marvel project that comes out this year. I haven't watched Moon Knight yet, but this will be better than Moon Knight, I can guarantee you that. And I think I'm going to give Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness a 7 out of 10. I could see myself boosting it to an 8 in the future, potentially. I could maybe, you know, think about it differently or appreciate it more as time goes by. But now I'm sticking with the 7. I'm very happy with that. Thanks again for joining me and watching my video on this. I have more stuff on the way quite soon. I've got a film journal video coming up, the first part of a film journal series. And hopefully I'm just going to be getting some more stuff done in the meantime. So yeah, thanks again for watching the video, guys. I really do appreciate it. Subscribe if you want to watch more stuff. Like the video if you like the video, because it just makes sense, doesn't it? I've got a film journal video coming up. I'm trying to make a regular film journal type thing to give the channel some sort of backbone, so that'll be coming up quite soon, and I've got plenty of other video ideas, just about getting them made. As you might have inferred, my setup has changed. I'm getting stuff put up all around my room. I'm trying to get a better setup for this whole YouTube thing. So thanks very much. I appreciate the viewership, and guys, have yourselves a good one, and I'll see you, hopefully, in the next video. Thanks very much.